All right, so good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started here. So welcome to our panel on diversity, equity, and inclusion, the current state and where we go from here. So for the panel, we have Nick, Chitra, and Jevon here with us, and I'm Rita Chaturvedi. I work for Morgan Stanley, been there for about 12 years now, and I work in the technology division in Morgan Stanley. I'm going to allow my panelists to introduce themselves first before we jump into the discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So Nick, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rita. Pleasure to meet each and every one of you. My name is Nick Fuller. I run distributed cloud research at IBM, Vice President Distributed Cloud. That entails applying AI technologies to the software delivery lifecycle in multiple domains, inclusive of journey to cloud and edge computing.
Hi, Chitra Hota. I work for Oaktree Capital Management. I'm the CTO and the head of data technology and architecture. I've been there for about 16 months now. Prior to that, I was at JP Morgan as a CTO, and then before that, Morgan Stanley. That's how I know Rita.
Hi, I'm Jevon Beckles. I'm a lead developer at Scott Logic, where we help. So it's a consultancy in the UK. I'm also a diversity and inclusion ambassador for that and FINOS DEI member.
Thank you, Nick, Chitra, and Jevon for being here. So we all keep hearing about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and equity and inclusion are more recent additions to the conversation. Diversity is what we used to speak about more in the past. And we hear a lot of stats around how the companies that are branded as diverse and inclusive have a better chance at being successful in acquiring business or getting success over their competitors in the marketplace. And there are studies from McKinsey and Gartner and all of these companies that place a measure value on what their edge can be. And yet, we see that there is still a lot of conversation that needs to happen in this regard and a lot of progress that is still needed in this area. So my first question to Chitra is, what more and should be done to improve the diversity, especially at the leadership and executive levels, potentially unlocking more business and social value?
Great question. What the best thing that we can do is ensure that once you have a seat at the table, you are constantly speaking out for diversity. You are looking at the hiring panels, making sure there are diverse candidates in the hiring panels, measure these KPIs and statistics along in the organization as well as in your leadership team, ensure that they're hiring a diverse panel. And more than that, be a good role model. Speak up, be there to mentor, because that's another thing, and advocate for the fact that women candidates or diverse candidates have to apply for a job even though they don't meet 100% of the capabilities that are advertised, because you can help them grow in the job by mentoring. We've done a lot of things in Oaktree. We have programs called RISE. So once women get promoted into, or diverse candidates promoted MD or VP level positions, even SVP for that matter, we start coaching them. We have sessions for them. We mentor them. We send them over to training so that we are growing a pipeline from within the firm if you're not finding a pipeline outside of the firm. And that has helped, especially in investment and in technology fields where the candidate pool is very, very low.
Yeah, that's really good. Nick, what would you want to say about this particular question, where what more can be done?
Yeah, so fantastic points raised by Chitra. Getting to the retention end of the equation is really critical as it relates to sponsorship, as it relates to filling exec positions that begin to represent what the globe looks like, what the planet looks like. The supply side of that equation is really critical too in terms of recruitment. And when you look at stats provided by the Computing Research Association, for example, they publish something known as the Talby Report on an annual basis. The Talby Report shows on the order of 1% to low single-digit percent for Black and Latino respectively at the bachelor's level, at the PhD level, about 20% female. And as you go in earlier degree progression, master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, the numbers rise, but never approaching, for the US, for example, national demographic numbers. So clearly a lot has to be done on the retention side, the recruitment side of the equation, both sides, candidly, to increase that pipeline so that you have more to sponsor as it relates to executive roles, mid-level management roles, and ultimately entry-level roles.
Yeah, great points. Thank you both. Jevon, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think that intentionality around getting the candidates into the positions in what would otherwise be, or they didn't meet the criteria, or they're just not out there, so don't go for it. That's the main key. That's the important thing to hold on to, and good examples by
yeah. I like that. The intentionality is really, really important for the firms to not just do lip service, but really do something tangible in this regard, and creating programs that will give you measurable benefits and measurable results is really, really important. Nick, my next question is to you. In your experience, do you have any examples where you or others that you may have interacted with used your position to improve diversity in your companies?
Yeah, so we undertook a major endeavor at IBM several years ago, pre the unfortunate events of 2020, where we really spread our wings beyond the usual sources. The usual sources being first-line managers go to their alma maters where they have relationships and they recruit individuals to ultimately bring into their organizations as they have hiring tickets. We created a really broad-based effort attending diversity specialized conferences in addition to the ones that we typically would go to, in addition to career fairs, TAPIA, Society of Women Engineers. Those are a few examples, and there are many more out there. And today, when you attend one of those conferences, everybody's there. Everybody in the financial sector and other sectors, technology service providers, etc. So they're all competing for the same talent. And what did we talk about before? That talent pool is a lot smaller. It doesn't meet national demographic standards. So the recruitment methods ultimately have to go even beyond the colleges level, all the way to the high school level. So one of the things we did fairly recently was to establish, we were having a lunchtime discussion on quantum, and quantum is certainly on the rise. There are other technologies, of course, that are mainstream today. We established a quantum research consortia with historically black colleges and universities, Morehouse College, my alma mater, and many others. So there you're actually hitting the nail on the head as it relates to how you specifically grow that pipeline. I've been a critical part of many of these endeavors myself, and we're seeing some fruit. Our numbers don't look like national demographics yet, but you're in it for the long game. You're in it for the long haul. It's not something that you solve in one hiring cycle or two hiring cycles.
Absolutely. We're in this for a long haul, for sure. Chitra, anything to add there?
Sure. So we've also been through several of these initiatives. We have Alt Finance. We go to historically black colleges, and we've partnered with other asset management firms on this one, including Apollo and Ares. We also have Wharton Women in Investing. Like Howard is a big sponsor of that. He's from Wharton. So we hold those conferences, we sponsor them. So we want to encourage women in the investment management space. There are very few, just like technology. In the technology space, I remember when I was in college, and entered my first job, I was the only woman engineer trainee in a batch of like 52. Very awkward, but I mean, that's the reality. So I made a conscious effort that I have to start mentoring the ladies right from like middle school into high school and have them select technology jobs. Because if you don't select technology careers or jobs, you will never be in that pipeline. I know it's difficult, women drop off, but the encouragement and having that role model in front of you, which I never had when I started, is very key, because if you see somebody that looks like you, you know what good looks like, or great looks like, and you want to be that. So that's something that I always try to promote.
Yeah, and I have benefited from that, and I'm sure a lot of other people benefit from seeing role models, not just women, but also all diversity categories.
Sure.
So it's really important to be able to see leaders who look like you, for you to aspire to become like them one day. Jevon, anything you would like to add here?
I'd really like to reiterate what Chitra has said in terms of that mentality of, you would have seen somebody, or you might be the person, but then passing it forward, being that person to say, okay, here is somebody that I can identify and try to bring up or help to promote, and we don't often do that in our careers. We kind of look for ourselves, and I think it's that broader looking out, and very much like the open source mentality. I think somebody mentioned in a talk earlier, that responsibility of taking the opportunity that somebody has given you, but also providing opportunity for others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to the next question, there are again reports from several accredited organizations. There is one particular report which Deloitte published in 2022, where they said that positive workplace culture is one of the top values that attract millennials to organizations. There is a survey that Forbes did, which said that psychological safety has become more and more important in organizations, and attracts talent to organizations that provide psychological safety to their employees. With more employees expecting these organizational behaviors, I'll start with Nick, you. Have you seen any changes in workplace to improve employees' feeling of belonging or encouraging psychological safety at work?
Yeah, no, fantastic question. So engagement is a critical part of retention, clearly. And significant part of engagement is that sense that I'm in a safe environment where if project-wise I'm unhappy, if there's challenges in the relationship between teammates, between managers, etc., you need avenues, you need vehicles to be able to reach out to and communicate such concerns. A measurement of that engagement process on some type of frequency, be it annual, be it biennial, is quite typical of many organizations today, and ensuring that there's no retaliatory methods employed by management and other leaders as it relates to that feedback. We are personally measured on that at IBM, and I know many other organizations are engaged in such measurements so that you have that feeling of comfort and safety. I'll give you a personal example. I recently conducted my own engagement, and there was a lot of positive feedback, and there was critical feedback as well as it relates to, there was one individual who was just uncomfortable with lunchtime conversations. This was approaching the election cycle, and there were lunchtime conversations at the table regarding, who is on one side versus the other, or in the middle, what have you. And that particular individual was uncomfortable with such discussions and shared that as part of the engagement process. And that was critical. I took the opportunity as part of that feedback to say, this is a safe space. We have to be able to share that thought. And ultimately, we're a company that doesn't lean left, right, or in the middle. We work with any organization. We work with any political organization. And so this is a critical part of who we are as an organization. So I think we're trending in that right direction. More of that needs to happen. I hear stories from other parts of the industry that suggest that we still have more to do in order to get to that, asymptotic perfection.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything to add, Jevon?
Yeah, I think, so again, brilliant question. It's very easy to think, the organization needs to be the person leading this, and quite rightly so. I think it's important that the organizations put their steps out and their efforts out and think, yes, we want to do this and we're going in this direction. However, this is new for everybody. And I think that, there may be fear that, I need to get it right first time, or I need to be able to engage everybody and make sure that, we're not getting involved in that because that's a topical issue, similar to Nick's point. So that acceptance, that understanding, that maturity of both the management in trying to do stuff, let's try to do something, but also that maturity of the staff, employees, citizens. We could extend that idea. Just accept that mistakes will be made, and if a mistake is made, we learn from it and grow from it. It's not going to be one-off. So I think it's important on both sides when engaging in that kind of activity that we go to it from those two sides of it.
Just a very positive outlook on this. Chitra, any thoughts on?
Yeah, so every leader has that responsibility to ensure that they give safe space, not to just their team, but to the broader teams in general, right? So retaliation is something that we also are very aware of, and we make sure the feedback is taken very candidly and acted upon. Second thing I would want to mention is the employee networks, right? They're very good safe spaces to talk, because you're outside your domain of work and you're mingling with other people in the organization. So we have LGBTQ networks. We have networks for native cultural groups. We also have women's leadership network, where we have a safe haven where we talk about issues at a leadership level, like what issues do you face. For example, one of the things that always comes up is microaggressions when it comes to women, right? So at the table. So what are we doing as a leader? When I see microaggression happening at the table, I always speak up and say, hey, that was a great idea. Why don't you help explain it? When somebody else is taking over the idea and speaking about it, right? So things like that, if you make that conscious effort as a leader and show that you care, automatically it's contagious. So the inclusive behavior and the biases kind of dissolve. And the inclusive behavior is actually promoted. So that's something that each one of us actually owes to the broader community.
Yeah, and it starts a positive cycle of keep
That's
giving
right.
forward.
Yes.
If you have received that allyship and advocacy from somebody, then you just pay it forward from there. My next question is actually related to, you said microaggression, subconscious biases. We are very aware of those now than we used to be even 5 years back. There is a lot of conversation about subconscious biases in workplace. It can be small things like saying, oh, you come from X, Y, and Z country and you have such an impeccable dressing sense. You may be thinking in your mind that you're giving a compliment to somebody, but they can take it as bias, and so on. So what are, I'll start with you, Jevon, on this question. What are your thoughts on subconscious bias in workplace, and how would you go about creating a safe environment to address these biases?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to start off with is that everybody has biases, whether we admit it or not, right? Some people have better control of it than others, but I think that is the starting point from which we should go. Things like policies for guiding behavior, positive behavior, and identifying what is negative behavior is important, and we should really try to incorporate that into corporate policies and ways of working and all those kinds of things. But fundamentally, it's a people thing, and I go back to that previous point. We are all human. Mistakes can be made. So somebody might have a bias and might need to be, as Chitra said, be pointed out that this is not acceptable. And in identifying that in the time, that maturity to take that on, okay, I've done something wrong, it's been pointed out, and not retaliate, but really, try to take that on board. And of course, there are ways to do that. It's conflict is never easy to deal with, but approaching it in this way, I think, is important. Having that common understanding that we're here to improve each other.
Absolutely. So basically creating an environment of trust where people feel comfortable pointing out when bias happens, but also the people who may have done the bias, or unconsciously, of course, that for them to accept it and be prepared to remediate the behavior going forward, right? Nick, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Jevon is spot on. Guidelines around business conduct as it relates to implicit bias is a critical part of not just human resources, meeting that out and communicating that to teams across organizations, but teams adopting that from a cultural standpoint, making it very much intrinsic to who you are as an organization and as a company. I think that just allows for a level of consistency such that it doesn't even begin to appear as you get to a level of maturity in the growth of an organization's culture. But that does take time if an organization is new to this and these policies are now being implemented for the first time. But I totally agree, this has to be a foundational part of who you are from a business conduct standpoint, with regular training that occurs at some frequency, be that once a year, twice a year, what have you, for that organization. And importantly and critically, manifested by leadership. Leadership has to lead the way in ultimately making that a cultural sticking point for that organization.
Yeah, very, very valid points. Thank you. Chitra, I'm going to just tweak it slightly from your standpoint. When we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, a big part of equity is pay parity. What are your thoughts on that?
Great question. So if you've been following the US Census, women make, I believe, 83 cents for every dollar that a man makes. And some of the things that have happened in the recent past is now the salaries are being published, as New York just started. It's going to happen in California as well and a couple of other states. That's a very good way of bringing parity to pay. The other thing is if you are aware of a pay equity not happening, you see a discrepancy between a male or a female candidate or another diverse candidate versus a general candidate, then speak up and bring about that change. That's the other thing that we need to do. And also remove that unconscious bias in the hiring process, right? Because the role should be agnostic of gender, right? It should be agnostic of color, race, creed, any of that. It should be just about the role, right? So that's another thing that we can do. So good. All the companies are bringing in pay equities, and that's a really good place to be now, and it's helping a lot of women.
Do you think there is still enough transparency about what the justifiable salary is for a position? Because the ranges that I've seen are all over the place, like 100,000 range from start to end for a particular position.
It's a start, but I would say you owe it to yourself as a woman to ask for what is rightfully yours, right? If you don't do that, the other thing that we do is we don't change jobs that often. I would encourage like 3 to 4 years, learn a new trade or learn a new stack and then change jobs, because that's the best way to get promoted. I've used that in the past, best way to get a pay hike. And of course, you have to work hard, we all do, to pick up that, but you can always pick it up.
Great. I was just reading up something I wanted to share, the great breakup. I don't know if everyone has heard about it, where women are leaving in throngs, and one of the biggest reasons is lack of pay parity. And organizations, according to a Gartner report, organizations that are going to work on pay parity will have at least 30 to 40% chance of keeping those women at the organization than the organizations that are not really paying much attention to this. So again, something to take away. We only have 3 more minutes left, so I would like to open up to our audience at this point and see if there are any questions for the panelists here. Yes, please.
Hi. So we're talking about some pretty difficult professions, right, in finance and tech, and yet we're also talking about, you guys have all mentioned kind of psychological safety and feedback and engagement. So how do you kind of thread the balance, with very performance and long hours kind of roles with I hear you and I want you to feel safe talking to me about what's going on with you? Like, how do you find that appropriate balance?
You want to take that?
Yeah, sure, I can take it. Any role in technology, any role that is a professional role spanning a range of industries requires you to deliver value. It starts with that. No one is hiring you per se because of a demographic. They are hiring you because of the ability, the potential ability for you to deliver value. That's number one. Now, once you are associated with returning value on that investment, absolutely, you have a safe space, right? As it relates to a range of, or you should have a safe space. Leadership is there to help enforce that. But they go together, right? We actually literally, I swear you had a direct link into a staff meeting we had fairly recently, but this is a discussion we just had because we are working more, right? There was significant competition coming out and continues to happen that way with the pandemic. And so folks want to know, okay, yes, I have to do this, I have to run fast, but I also have these other things that are appearing, right? How do you help me with productivity? How do you help me with a whole range of other issues so that, yes, I can complain, so to speak, to leadership to help make things more efficient. But at the end of the day, delivering value is critical.
Yes.
So, talked a lot about bias and safe space and creating that, and a lot of that falls on the leadership, which I really appreciate you saying that, because I'm sure there's a lot of leaders in the room here. But what do you do in the hiring process? What traits do you look for candidates to make sure that when they come in, they're going to fit the culture that you want and really drive home the point of inclusion, which I think, like you said, Rita, is a newer emphasis that we have in the organization.
So I can take that. So there are a couple of things you can do. So you don't always have to hire for fit for the culture. Sometimes you need to change the culture a bit also. So you have to look I look for growth. Can that person grow in this organization? What kind of leadership skills is the person bringing to the table, right? And then a lot of the gaps can actually be filled by mentorship if you don't find the perfect candidate. But you have to ensure that the pipeline that you're hiring for is very consistent and it's helping you grow your organization to make it much more inclusive, because I've always felt that if I have representation across my table, I get a better product, I'm delivering faster, and I'm also ensuring that I have efficiency in my entire pipeline, right? Because those ideas are helping me become better. Not just become better as an organization, but become better as a leader, because there's reverse mentoring happening when you learn from the candidates that you hire. So all of it works.
I mean, can I just add to that in that, we forget that people's interactions go beyond the company or a company, right? And I think the more that a company can fill the gaps that a person lives, as many gaps, and I mean, you can't fill all the gaps, but the more gaps that you can fill in their career development, the better the company will do for attracting, maintaining, developing, and ultimately retaining.
Yeah, I love that. The companies are basically, they have the ability to make an impact on the society, and that's where this is even more important, that we start it within our organizations and influence the rest of the society along with our own organizations. So I know we are seeing a stop sign in the back.
Maybe one more. I think we had one more question there.
Yeah? Okay, yes, please.
So I know in a lot of the DEI initiatives, we talk mostly from the perspective of the supply, so usually the diverse population, but I'm curious about any metrics or measures of success that are not strictly from the perspective of like counting the population of diverse species. So like how do we include non-diverse people and how we measure success of like facilitating that pipeline, community of sustaining, diversity in the organization?
I can go.
Yeah.
You have to start early. First of all, start at the middle school, high school level. Then the other thing is encourage people to apply, even though they do not meet 100% of the job criteria. That's the other thing where we see, especially for women, if they don't fit the bill 100%, they don't apply. But I don't see that for men. So that's another thing that I would say, like even if you don't fit the bill 100%, do apply for that job, because you can always grow into that role.
Yeah, and hiring managers have to, conversely, they have to become a bit more flexible in really identifying what are the core requirements of the role, and as long as the person is meeting those core requirements, everything else can be flexible. But to your, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, sorry, I kind of want to turn this on its head a bit, in the sense that we really shouldn't be So yes, metrics and that kind of thing is important. But I think we kind of need to get to the stage of almost continuous reflection where, because you could identify groups and say, oh, we are now including this group and that group and that group. But somewhere along that process, if somebody gets left out inadvertently, right, that's still a problem, and that's part of the reason why we have the societies that we have today. And I think that in inculcating a culture of continuous reflection, who am I excluding? Who is not getting the best? Who is that I think is the stage that we need to get to, rather than just looking at numbers or anything like that.
Sure. All right, so with that, we will wrap up our discussion. Thank you again, Nick, Chitra, and Jevon.
Thank you for coming.